And hey, folks, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. I'm Michael Bryant for the afternoon session here. You know, last week on the network, one of the most dramatic and intense, passionate, and emotional cases played out. It was the case of Texas versus Amber Guyger, the former Dallas cop who was ultimately convicted of killing Botham Jean in a situation in which she thought she was entering her apartment in Dallas and shooting an intruder. As we know, it turned out it was not her apartment. It was the apartment directly above. And Mr. Jean was inside, relaxing, having a little bowl of ice cream, and was he, in fact, the one being intruded upon, but was shot dead. And the trial concluded after about 5 hours of jury deliberation. Murder was the top charge. Murder was the conviction. And then the next day, sentencing began. The sentencing range was 5 years to 99 years. The jury gave Ms. Guyger 10 years. So this is all unfolding in real time, and we thought the case was starting to settle down. And yet Friday night, one of the witnesses in the case, Joshua Brown, you may remember his testimony. He was a neighbor of both Guyger and Jean in a way. He was in the floor below where Guyger's apartment was. He was coming home the day this happened, September 2018. He heard some voices, described the conversation as a surprise exchange between two. He didn't recall the words. And then he heard two quick gunshots. So Friday night, this man was shot dead in an apartment complex in the area there in Dallas. So far, nobody has been arrested. So far, there have been no names as suspects. And so this is playing out in a very bizarre way. With me to help understand what's going on here is Lee Merritt. Lee is the attorney for the Jean family. He's been along for this ordeal from the beginning. First of all, thank you, Lee, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me if I've misstated anything about what happened with Mr. Brown up through Friday evening, and what new details do you know at this point?
Yeah, Friday evening, he was coming home. He arrived in his parking lot and he was ambushed. Somebody who was apparently waiting for him there. They have not been identified. They shot him several times and they escaped in a silver four-door sedan. The police have not identified any leads at this point.
So let me ask you this. I mean, the options going around out there, because this case got worldwide attention, including what I'm calling the hug heard round the world. Conspiracy, coincidence, your thoughts?
Well, there's going to be a lot of speculation because of the proximity of this high-profile trial and the fact that he was an important witness in that trial. That the talking heads have begun to say that maybe that this was retaliation for his role in seeing a rare conviction of a police officer for the killing of an unarmed black man. I have not seen any evidence of that in the past 2 or 3 days that I've been looking at this case that would back up that assertion. However, it's important that a thorough, independent investigation is done to either set aside those fears or to discover who, in fact, was involved in the murder of this witness.
So let me ask you, put a percentage on it. How confident are you that that kind of investigation is going to take place? 50-50, 90%? What's the likelihood?
I have zero confidence that the Dallas Police Department can put on a competent investigation. And this is why. The Dallas Police Department are considered suspects in this case, whether they like it or not, because of the proximity in this trial and that it was their officer and their investigators who were involved in this case. Then them performing this investigation is not going to be well received by the community. If they're wise, if they want to gain some credibility, they go out and they ask an outside agency like the FBI or even the Sheriff's Department to come in and perform this investigation for them.
And have you called for that, or are you aware of anybody that might have called for that?
I have called for that publicly, and I think I will make. It's my plan to make a private call to the chief of police and see if she's willing to do that.
Let me ask you this. Let's follow this conspiracy theory to a logical conclusion. You would have to believe that Joshua Brown's testimony was so important that almost in and of itself, it led to the conviction of former police officer Guyger. What do you think about that? Was it that important?
Well, there's two theories to follow to a logical conclusion. The first is that law enforcement officers decided to target him because of the importance of his testimony. His testimony was important. He would have been one of the first witnesses I called in the subsequent civil trial. he completely undermines the testimony of Amber Guyger, or the defense of Amber Guyger, who says that she was in that apartment believing it was her own, and that she gave verbal commands to Botham Jean, loud verbal commands to show his hands. It was his failure to comply that caused her to use deadly force. She needed those verbal commands in order to make her behavior reasonable. Otherwise, she just burst into someone's apartment and shot them to death. He testified that he could hear what was going on in that apartment every day. He could hear Botham Jean singing Drake and gospel music. Well, if he could hear that, then he could certainly hear her giving verbal commands if she gave it. And he testified that he did not hear it, and no one else in that apartment complex heard it. And so it completely refuted her best defense. So his testimony was important. Do I believe that his testimony would have gotten him killed? No, I don't think that.
As I recall his testimony, it was not so much, I didn't hear her say, put your hands up, put your hands up, show me your hands, show me your hands. It was he recognized a surprise by two different voices, but he couldn't tell what was said. So it wasn't as if he said, no, she did not say that. He just said, I don't know what she said or what the other voice said. That's my recollection.
He testified in two parts. He testified first, I heard two people that sound like they were surprised, and I didn't hear any discernible words that they were saying. He was later asked specifically, did you hear her say, show me your hands, show me your hands? He said, no, I did not hear that.
So let's talk about, since we're talking about the Dallas PD here, let's talk about the civil case. Clearly, with res judicata, collateral estoppel, there's no issue proving what Guyger did, but she would be a hollow judgment in a civil case. That's not where the money is in a civil case, and a civil case is about money. So this is about finding the Dallas PD responsible for wrongful death. How do you see that case shaping up, and how's the investigation going?
Well, we learned a lot during this trial, and we learned about the ratification of Amber Guyger's behavior by the Dallas Police Department. When I say ratification, okay, she did something that was criminal, that was wrong, that has been deemed murder by a jury in the state of Texas. What role did the city of Dallas play? Well, they showed up. Number one, of course, they provided her training, her equipment. They retained her as an officer. She was, in fact, now that we've gone through the trial, her defense was she was acting as a police officer at the time of the trial. So that puts the city of Dallas back on the hook. And then when you have Mike Mata, the president of the Police Officers Association, when you have her partner deleting information, then all of that behavior ratifies the behavior of Amber Guyger, and I think puts us in a much better position from the civil perspective.
And I'm sure you're anticipating the Dallas PD saying, well, hey, this is the course and scope situation. She was off the clock. What she did as Amber Guyger was not our concern. She wasn't acting as Officer Amber Guyger. I'm sure you've anticipated that. Let me ask you this. I've been involved with a few wrongful death cases. Very few of them actually see trial. What's your guess on whether this actually goes to trial?
I think that the city of Dallas has been exposed enough to put a significant pressure on them to want to make this case go away in terms of the settlement. Now, Botham Jean, and speaking purely as a lawyer, Botham Jean has his damages case is probably one of the best that you're going to see from a liability perspective. He was a young man on a partnership track at one of the largest accounting firms in the country. And his earning potential, if you speak to partners at PricewaterhouseCoopers, they're going to say it was unlimited. And so it won't be easy to get to a number that will resolve this case. The city is certainly motivated.
Yeah, and obviously, from all accounts, the most innocent of victims, and it's unfortunate the way it has played out. Settlement discussions yet too early? Anything along those lines likely?
It's too early at this point.
Okay. Well, we wish you the best. We wish the family the best. We know that as each element of this continues, they're dragged through this again and again, and it's a tough slog, so they'll have to steel themselves against these situations. But I think you, Mr. Merritt, will at least be there to help them, to lean on this. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, you bet. Lee Merritt there, representing the Jean family in all of the facets of the case that continue in the Amber Guyger trial out of Texas, and now the civil trial to come. We're going to take a quick break. We've been to the courtroom in Florida for the Garcia-Magbanua case. We will come back, get back into that courtroom. They are wrapping up a break, and so will we. We'll come back in a minute.